figure it out. I'll be good.
All right, excellent. And we are now live. And I'm going to mute this channel before I get too many echoes. We are now. Okay. And I'm gonna. There's no way this is true that we have 147 people watching right now. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Maybe we do. All right, let me make sure to retweet it, then we can get into it. Oh yeah, I see.
I'm gonna retweet it also.
Yeah. There we go. All right.
Are you tweeting as Cole?
I retweeted it as Cole, and Brooke already did the Patrick, or had the company tweet.
Yeah,
Hello,
I did
everyone.
that one. Okay. I did that one too. Good first few minutes of every presentation is us talking about tweeting.
Yep. I was thinking about that the other day, how like all of my videos now have this like weird 1 minute period where I'm trying to make sure my microphone is on.
Yeah. Hey everybody.
Yeah, wow, look at that chat go.
It is 225 people. My dude.
Yep.
So Cole, how was your Christmas vacation or holiday vacation generously provided by Leader Games?
It's true. It's one of our forced closures where we try really hard to not work. It was great. We do this thing with our kids where instead of getting them like lots of individual things, we do like big presents. Mm-hmm. So this year they got a bunch of Nugget, which is like this thing for making couch forts, and just a mountain of Playmobil. And so we've just been playing Playmobil for the last 2 weeks straight, and it's been great. So I had a lovely trip. We went sledding. There was in the Twin Cities, we had a very like warm. I mean, you know this too, Patrick, because you're the hero. Mm-hmm. We had like a super warm and weird December, and then 2 days before Christmas, a blizzard. And so it was some real like Rudolph the Red-Nosed stuff happening. And it's a beautiful white Christmas. We went sledding a bunch. It was great. How was yours?
Yeah. Well, as you know, but this is exposition, so I am too loud compared to Cole, apparently.
Oh, well then I'll fix that.
Or Cole is too silent compared to Patrick.
Am I silent? Too silent. Well, we'll see. I'll fix it.
Anyway, so as you know, I decided that COVID and Christmas was really the best time to move. So I think I've been to the credit for the volume controls. I think I just got a little excited and my voice is booming.
I also fixed it on the back end. We're good now.
Okay, good. So I decided it was high time I move, and we executed that move on the 23rd.
It was
and
like
then I had
photo finish move.
Yeah, and it was because the movers had misestimated how much stuff we had. They basically had half the boxes they need and didn't think through the logistics part of, well, if we show up with half the boxes, we can just move half the stuff and then move the rest of the next day when we come with more boxes. So they ended up pushing everything back a day. So we ended up on the 23rd, and we were literally getting boxes off the truck as the blizzard was starting, and we had to wipe down a few boxes as they came in. So that was pretty exciting stuff. But yeah. So anybody who's looking at the red brick behind me, this is my new home office, which I'm enjoying right now. It is very nice. I have a lovely view of the neighborhood from back here. It's on the back end of the house, and I can see all sorts of stuff. Little rear window, but it's good. So
I'm gonna get you a very long lens.
And but we got through it, and we've been happily unpacking. We kind of like, of course, after like a week of 12-hour days, we were like, okay, let's just relax for a couple days. So we're
get some recoup.
So I feel like I'm living in a hotel that is my house because there's still a lot of stuff that needs to come out and get unpacked. But yeah. So it was a lot of fun. But I did enjoy the holidays, and somebody graciously, I think it was Marshall, brought me Kingdom Rush from my office, and I've been enjoying that, the Kickstarter for Kingdom Rush. And I also bought Kingdom Rush on the Steam sale, which I've beaten completely in the Flash version. But I was like, what the hell? I'm going to go through it again. So I've been cruising through that. So
the rare double dip.
Yeah. And I've also been learning how to paint, which is going terribly. Paint miniatures. It's not... I realized I got really excited and ambitious about it, and then I was like, I just time I'm spending on this, I could be working on Kyle's secret project. So I was like, I should probably just go work on that. So,
but well, now that we're back at it, we can get to it properly.
yeah.
Before I tell you what we've been up to, someone in the chat asked for a Playmobil set recommendation for a 5-year-old. Here's my recommendation for a 5-year-old: buy a used lot of Playmobil because they're going to destroy it. So just wait on the sets just a little bit. Let them destroy some used Playmobil. My oldest is 7, and he is like now of proper Playmobil age, and they're really into it.
So this is a little bit telling about me as a person. When I first I got one Playmobil set when I was little, and it was a bunch of workers. They look kind of European. Is Playmobil from Europe?
Yeah, it's like German, I think.
Yeah, and so and it was just it's literally a road crew, and it came with pipes and like things for like flattening roads and and putting down roads, which is like, now that I think about it, like what a weird like I mean, no diss on people that build roads, but it's not as exciting as like a
Right.
firefighter set or something. And when I was done playing with it every night, I would pack every piece back into the plastic tray and make sure I had every piece. And I lost one time, and it was like this little pipe holder, which I would never. There was like 11 in the set, and I'd never even used them all anyway. But I was so frustrated, and I went looking for it for hours. So and I found it.
Yeah, we have already lost a lot. Yeah, we've already lost a lot of our Playmobil. I caught my 1-year-old with just a mace, a ball and chain mace in her mouth. Just she wasn't eating it; it was just in a cheek. She was just keeping it there. So just really good parenting. So we are all back.
Yeah, let's talk about the future. Yeah,
we should probably talk about it. There's a bunch of people here. My goodness. So a few things. We're back at work now. We started back on Monday, and I feel like I had such. It was funny, Patrick. You and I were talking about this morning. We had such dreams for what we were going to get done this week, and it's just been. I think all the machinery is starting back up a little slowly on our end. We're just kind of catching up on emails, getting everything kind of set up and ready for what's going to be a pretty busy spring. So I'm back in the office. There aren't very many people here. We're because of COVID, we're running like a very, very skeleton crew at the office, and then most of the staff is still work from home. Most of my time has been tied up on like very, very final Oath stuff. So you can see behind me, Oath all laid out. Is my headphone cord going to be long enough for me to reach the Oath box? There you go. We'll do a proper unboxing with lighting and cameras and things soon. But it's super lovely. We're all really happy with how it turned out. I can't wait to show you guys more. And, normally with a normal game release, we would have a bunch of people in the studio. We'd be playing the game a ton. Can't really do that right now, but I can do a solo game. So one of my hopes for the next few weeks is to do a solo game of Oath, or maybe a 2-player game, which we'll live stream, and we can see all the physical pieces in action. But we are, really, really, really happy with how it turned out. Someone in the chat asked about the release date. Our hope is that this is going to be shipping to backers. It'll be in fulfillment but sometime between March and April. We don't really know for sure. Right now, the world of logistics is really crazy. Like there is a physical container shortage. So like you can't, even if you wanted to move something, if we're ready to move across the ocean at this moment, we're still having to bid for containers. It's crazy. This stuff doesn't normally happen.
So to clarify that, what's happening is these things have to go into giant shipping containers that go onto semi trucks, and onto ships and then semi trucks, and like. Normally, those are just constantly flowing back and forth. But basically, what's happening because of COVID is that they're getting into port and having to sit for 3 weeks or 2 weeks for decontamination, or just because there's so few workers to handle them. And so China, I read yesterday, has 10% of the shipping containers they normally do. So we're in a scary place. And frankly, I'm not going to like who are we to try and outbid a company that might be shipping medical supplies or or paper that's needed? So
it's not as if things have like stopped. Things are still moving. It's just really hard to predict. And something that I said recently to a friend, when I put Pax Premier on the water for the printing we did, it literally, something that left the factory like the next week was like 2 months later than Premiere was. And it was of no particular fault of anyone. It's just right now the ports are very chaotic. It's like hard to know. So we have to have these like very wide degrees of variance in our shipping estimates, but March, April, hopefully.
Yeah. To answer your question, Torex, yes, it is. I think a lot of Kickstarter companies that are supplying their games for Kickstarter right now have been very like quiet about this, but it is inside of our inner circles and inside of our discussion groups, you can see like panic all the way across the industry about these sorts of things. It's not just us.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
go ahead.
No, totally. So anyway, Oath is great. Oath looks great. We're super happy with it. We sent some pictures in a Kickstarter update and on our newsletter. We have lots of kind of like little Oath in the background stuff we're working on, but over the next few weeks, we'll start doing some live streams, which will include some unboxings. And then, like most of our live streams, we will migrate them to YouTube after it. So if you're, I guess I don't know why I'm telling the YouTube users here on Twitch, but don't worry, YouTube, we haven't forgotten about you. I'm just really excited to show everyone more about that. The other thing that's happening right now at the studio that's very exciting is that we're almost done with the Fort expansion, which Nick Brockman has been developing. It's based on Grant's original proposal for it. And the Fort expansion is so good. I love it so much. We are like past the stage in playtesting where I have anything useful to say about it, because most of what we need to be collecting right now are like feedback from new players and blind playtests and that kind of thing. But I still ask Nick to play it because I really like it. I think it's very, very smart, and we'll be putting that into production soon. And hopefully we'll have it ready for release sometime later this year. If you would like to play it, you can play the Fort expansion stuff right now by going onto the Woodland Warriors Discord and enabling the Fort discussion channels. You'll see some of those channels are about the Fort expansion, and right now you can start playing it. It is wonderful on TTS, that is. Thank you, Brooke, for dropping that invitation link to the Woodland Warriors. Okay, so let me see if there's anything else that's happening. So we are, at the beginning of the year, and with Oath wrapping up, we've been spending a lot of our time figuring out our schedule and trying to sort through what everyone's going to be working on. And so we'll have a lot more to reveal about our schedule later. But the main thing that we wanted to talk about with you all was the new root content, which Patrick has been really hard at work building off. And so what we're going to do before we get into the specifics of the new root content, I want to talk a little bit about these live streams and how we're going to be showing the root content and how we're going to be allowing you guys to play it soon. So in the past, what we've done is when we launch a Kickstarter, or like in the case of Underworld, like a week or so after the Kickstarter, we like unveil print and play kits. We're going to do something a little bit differently with this new root material. Instead of waiting for the Kickstarter, we're going to be phasing in print and play content kind of up until the Kickstarter. So by the time the Kickstarter launches, we'll have all the print and play content for everything ready. We'll have, objects that you can put into a TTS if that's how you're playing, or if you're in a place where you can play with a group, we'll also have physical print and play kits for you to make those there. So this week, we're going to be talking about the Warlord. And then sometime in the next couple of weeks, we'll have another stream where we talk about the minor factions and the Badger. We're kind of slowly be phasing everything in. And by the end of this kind of block of streams, by the time certainly that we announce the actual Kickstarter date, which right now we're looking at like late February in general, by the time that we have all those specifics kind of locked in, you guys will have seen a lot of the content. You'll be able to play most of it too. So today our hope is that we're going to kind of take you on a tour through the Warlords, and then depending on our time, we can show you some other things as well. All right, so Patrick, with that in mind, I'm going to play camera person and let you show off the Warlord.
Oh yeah, sure. So why don't you zoom over to the heckin' Warlord ward?
The Warlord does not currently have a name, much like the expansion itself. We are currently still figuring out what we're going to call it.
The Burning Rats. Yeah, so I have been working on the Warlord and the Badgers. The Badgers, we had a version we liked before the break, but I kind of hit the ground running on Monday and had a long day redesigning them, and so now I'm testing those back into shape. And by the way, some of the development you see here is courtesy of Josh Yearsley, also our new editor. I just want to give credit where credit's due. He's been helping me do the layout and things like that, and then keeping the rules tight while we work on it. So, which is kind of his forte. So, yeah, and so this is the Warlord, and kind of the synopsis of the Warlord was that I wanted to develop a faction, and originally I wanted to develop a faction that had a pawn controlling it, and it was kind of like a less charismatic vagabond, or and as a leader of the Warlord pack or whatever you want to call it, a little bit of charisma, right? But not the way that the vagabond's running around having a charming little adventure and helping people. And we also, one of the mandates was that both of the factions in the expansion be militant factions, which mean they have 20 or more warriors and can do a little bit of policing on the board. Oddly, we've already violated that mandate a little bit because the Badgers are probably going to be 15 warriors, but 15 is plenty for the Badgers, so they'll be fine. And so what we ended up with is the Warlord isn't quite a pawn. He can be killed like other warriors, he or she, but you get this little mouse guy here who is the Warlord running your faction, and then you have our new double-sided warrior rat meeple.
They will not be double-sided in the physical release.
Yes, that is true. Yes, this is just an artifact at TTS.
It's an artifact at TTS. It's nice because it always takes good screenshots, but making root meeples double-sided. If you guys want everything to just cost 40% more, I guess we could do that, but we're not going to do that.
That's right. And so that was the basis for this. And so basically you have a faction that you're kind of directing two action menus. And I it's funny, I like before the break or sometime in December I was reading a little bit about the strategy of the Civil War, because Cole early on kind of pitched a game about the Civil War to me, not like a real pitch, but just kind of I wish I could build this. And so ever since he's done that, I go back and read a lot more about Civil War, which you studied in school, but as an adult, there's so you didn't understand why things happened, and as an adult, you're now aware of how politics works. I'm like, okay, yeah, I get this. Anyway, so one of the things that fascinated me was always how the general had to move his force in a particular way, but then they would create other forces that would flank and encircle and entrap and things like that. And so there was a lot of, but this was during a time you couldn't communicate by radio, so there had to be a lot of planning that happened around it. And so that's kind of how I thought about the Warlord, was how do I make this work as a faction? So there's two sorts of action menus for the Warlord. You are taking logistics actions, which and this is all work in progress. These names will probably change. Heckin' Warlord probably won't be the final name, for instance. And so you're taking logistics actions each turn, which represent the capability of your other officers. And it's you can move, you can battle, and you can build these strongholds and clearings. And that's important to you. But then the primary function of your turn then is that you're going to be doing actions with the Warlord itself and bringing along meeples to attack with. So that's kind of how that works. As you and if anybody's got any questions, I'm not able to talk and read right now, so someone else have to type them out to me in Slack maybe. And so we also wanted to engage with the item space a little bit better than we had been, which is the vagabond items. And so part of the Warlord was that as the Warlord crafts items and as the Warlord fights, they can steal items from the other players, and those will go into the Warlord's Hoard, which is right here. And the Warlord's Hoard then provides how many actions per turn they get in those categories. And so at the start of the game, you can take one logistics action and one prowess action, and then as you gain those items, you can increase your abilities to perform those actions. So that's in there too, and it's lovely. This has been a great part of the game, because now as the other players produce items, the Warlord will try and come and burn one of their buildings down, and it's been great. I also am really enjoying this build of the Warlord because, as we proved yesterday, there's something to be developing your position, which is a strategy that you'll play. And then there's also something to be said for just eventually I just abandon all hope on building anything useful and just started marauding the map as hard as I could to try and get points from burning stuff down, and finished the game with ironically by sacking the keep yesterday.
So someone asked from the chat, can the Warlord steal the Vagabond's items?
Yeah, I believe in this iteration
we have gone back on this like a few different times.
It's
right?
pretty mean.
Yeah, you can really ruin a Vagabond's game. And so like we have gone back and forth on this like a few times and trying to figure out exactly what the interaction is between the Warlord and the Vagabond in that way. It's something that's kind of like still up for contention.
Mm-hmm. And then the other factor of those items is that so when you attack a building and destroy it, you get an item from that player. You can also burn down the ruins or the other player's buildings to get those items, and now you can burn down the ruins. You don't get a point for it because that is a rule specific to the Vagabond, and so we just so the rules wouldn't get more complicated. We just left it out. So anyway, so at the beginning of each day, the Warlord wakes up. You get these 7 mood cards at the beginning of the game, and these are little. Right now, they have the Vagabond character art on them. I don't know why we put those on there, but they will actually be the same. It'll be the rat expressing different emotions. So you put down a mood card. It does have to change from round to round. If you have none available, which could happen, then you just take the turn without a mood card. If you are in a situation where you have no option for your mood, you are probably curb stomping the game anyway. So no big loss there.
So do you want to say that again about how the items interact with the mood?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you develop items, I was going to talk about later, but that's fine.
Oh no, sorry. Then you should wait for later.
No, it's fine. So once you get a sword, for instance, with Stubborn here, Stubborn leaves the game forever. So you just set it aside, and you can no longer become Stubborn as your mood. And so what this does is it allows your early game to be a little bit stronger, and then you start to feel inertia as the game goes on. And this is a great. It's hitting on a great pace right now, because what I like about playing the Warlord is you start out really strong and punchy, and then if you can really, during Act 2 of the game, you can push yourself too hard and end up in a situation where your Warlord's going to die, and you just have to live with it. And then the third act of the game then is what I like most about a lot of good games for me, is when you have to do more with less in the third act of the game, and that is very true for the Warlord if you don't pace yourself. And I'm really enjoying that part of the gameplay.
And there are 7 moods, 8.
Yep, there are 7 moods right now. Yep, there isn't one for the
torch,
so which is 8th item.
Yep.
So, because I would be mean to take the Vagabond's torch, and
and we're not sure if you can yet. So,
and we're not sure if you can. Yep. And so, So those are your mood cards, and so they all just give you some passive ability that affects the turn. I find playing them very, it's very entertaining choice, and I'm really enjoying that part of it. So then you go to Scorch. There are these little flame tokens you can have on the board. This is obviously not final art. They'll sit in a clearing. So if you get to step 2 of Birdsong with a flame on the board, you remove all ruins and enemy buildings in the current clearing you occupy. And so this leads to a strategy where you see the Warlord player doing is walking into a clearing that he knows he cannot win a fight in, maybe punching down a few warriors, and then starting a fire and just challenging the other player to take out his stack in order to get to the fire beneath it all. Once that's done, you then bring in the special Scorch die, which is, I think, Cole's idea, and I really like, because basically this gives a little taste of it feels like fire. Like, it feels like, oh, now it's out of control. And so basically you roll this die, and whatever side it comes up on, the fire will then drift off in that direction towards a new clearing. And then as the Warlord player, you have to decide, am I going to move with it and support it, or am I just going to let it, or am I just going to let someone take it out for a point? And so there's a lot of that's been pretty interesting. 2 of the sides are, one is on, which is actually no. I don't know why the font really looks like on instead of no. That just means it doesn't move that turn. And then currently one is an X, which means the fire goes out, but we are gonna phase that out. We're trying to figure out something to do with the 6th side. It's just not fun having the fire go out. Like it's even for your opponents, it's like there's this anticipation, and then you get an X, and you're like, well, that was great. It was probably more appropriate when the Warlord got more cards, but since the Warlord gets so few cards, it's easy enough to just do something else with that.
So there are 3 fire tokens, and then somebody asked, what if you roll a clearing that it can't go to? Like if you roll a mouse and there's no adjacent mouse.
So in my version of the rules, it's stuck then. It can't move. It just has to stay where it is. I don't know what Josh has implemented in the rules on that, because I think that we did have some discussion about it. But yeah, for now, it would just stay where it is. And so, for instance, if it's blocked here and you rolled an orange with this fire, you would have to leave it there. And there's some strategy to that, and that was my intent, because then the order you roll the die in can become important to making it swing in a direction you want it to swing.
People are suggesting for a face an exploding die that spawns an additional fire.
Ooh,
which is good. I love exploding dice. I'd never heard of that concept before, the exploding sixes, until I played Time of Crisis, which is a great game with exploding dice for anybody who wants a good exploding dice war game.
I remember it from Shadowrun in the 80s. So, all right. So. Going along. Sorry, ops. I looked at ops for some reason.
You can't open Slack while you got.
Can't open Slack right now. That is for dang sure. Okay, so then you recruit. You get a number of warriors equal to your prowess at the Warlord's clearing, and then you get 1 warrior in every stronghold. That's a little strong right now. There's a lot of recruiting going on, so we're gonna. We'll keep an eye on it, basically, is what my concern is. Again, Warlord's lost game, so I'm not too worried about that balance yet. And like all asymmetric design, balance should really come at the end anyway, because it's such a chore. A chore I love to do and get to do. Step 4 then is if your Warlord was dead, you appoint a new one. Since this is at the end of Birdsong, that means if your Warlord died, then you do not get to have a mood that turn, and you don't get to recruit from the Warlord's clearing that turn. Again, this is one of the levers we can pull if we find the Warlord. If that's too harsh, we can pull that lever and move that around a little bit. So I'm liking that. You take your daylight actions, as I said. So it's logistics first, and then it's advance. Craft with your strongholds. You can ignite during evening step 2, so you can spend a card matching a clearing to place a flame token there. In that space. There is one of the moods that lets you ignore the cost, I believe. Yeah, you can ignite without spending a matching card. It's indignant. Then you oppress. So the Warlord scores points, and it's a delightfully frustrating puzzle. You have to be the sole occupant of a clearing to score points. And that creates some really interesting like Badger plays, where the Badger will just kind of place one guy in a bunch of your clearings and be like, come get me, come clear out your territory. And so it's very rare you score 3 points. It's usually 1 or 2 points, but you're also getting points for gunning down buildings and things like that. So
this is a weird scoring schema that I thought initially was going to not play nice with variable player count. But it's actually kind of so far it's been okay, just because the Warlord clears so much territory as he moves around the map. And kind of nobody wants to hang out by him. So what ends up happening is like, a third of the board gets a little more empty, and then the other 2/3 of the board is a little more crowded as people are kind of like staying out of the Warlord's territory, which puts a really cool pressure on the game, because I think he's better, at least in the games I've watched. He seems better at holding a line than the Eerie, which can sometimes get kind of pocked and split up.
But then at some point you have to go for it and dive into a big stack of points. Yep. And that's been fun. He is definitely very influential in the game that is in. So we'll see how that goes. And then at the end of the turn, you draw 1 card. Just like every other faction, you do not have any way to get bonus cards, except for one of the moods lets you draw another card, which is the, I believe, the rowdy one, which is keyed off of coins if you get coins. And that seems pretty harsh, but we like thematically, we like it ludonarratively. It fits really well to me that if you're this guy who's just running around burning up stuff, you're not really playing the influence game, which is what the that kind of represents to me. and I hope it represents to you, Cole. I hope
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
on
yeah.
the same
No,
wavelength
we
there.
we're completely on the same wavelength.
Yeah. So yeah, it's your influence in the forest, and without and if you're just being a jerk, no one's gonna like you. But then of course you can get rowdy and get another. Maybe that
Yep.
should be something to suggest you're being into like charismatic or charming. That you're
I
getting
kind of like
influence.
rowdy too, though.
Yeah, I kind of like rowdy too. And this, of course, is the North American. I'm zoomed way in on it, but it's not going to help on Cole's screen.
Oh, yeah.
That is the North American badger, which is the
Oh yeah.
the here is the European badger for
Oh yeah. Sorry.
reference, and they are just such different animals. I mean, they're both aggressive and will eat you, but the North American badger just looks scary compared to the.
And I'll say something that Patrick already said, but I'll just underline it again. These are all going to be pictures of the Warlord character in different moods and maybe colorations and things like that. We're just using Vagabond art because we like to put art on cards. When you have a giant folder of Kyle art, you cannot help but use it.
Yeah, the European badger is deceptive. It will eat you given the chance. Also, do not touch a river otter.
Yeah,
Is what I've learned from working in Root. Someone asked, "How's the Warlord at crafting?" They're pretty decent.
it's the card scarcity that kills one crafting.
Yeah. It's just it's like the scarcity is so much that there was an opportunity to play an ambush that would have been potentially very useful for me in yesterday's game, and I decided not to because I wanted to have that red card more than I wanted to have an ambush. And again, with the crafting, it's just very difficult. Though, of course, if you are short on items, you can always build your own items and come in later. I always feel like I'm a little bit late on building the items every game. Like I'm like, oh, I'm going to put this boot down. I'm like,
that
oh,
happened to me the game I played.
out.
The last game I played with the Warlord, I forgot that I could craft. And it was like, where am I getting my items?
And they're gone. So cool. Yeah.
Cool.
So that's pretty much it. It is. I'm enjoying it. Like I said, they're probably a little bit too powerful, and I'm not knocking anyone's development or design. I just it's we're pretty early in the process, and we still have to tune them a little bit. And then I think what was I gonna say? I think they're just a little bit powerful. I also think the turns might be a little bit.
Yeah, we might have to like nest a phase or something like that.
Yeah,
I mean, but they have. I mean, for folks who haven't followed, haven't gone with us on this journey before, because we always try to show folks the whole process. They're very much at the stage where I consider them like design complete, and they have like fully entered development. They've gone through some development. There's some more to go, and development is often about rearranging the parts to see if you can build something. So like, okay, maybe the way I would think about it is you have something that you like what it does, and then the question of development is, can I make that thing with fewer parts? Or can I rearrange the parts to remove some words? Because we have, I think there's a general sense, and we did this with the Underworld expansion, where we kind of had like a complicated faction and then like a very easy faction, right? So like the Corvids, very straightforward. I mean, almost as easy as the cats, just in terms of the number of rules they have. And the Warlord, even though the Warlord looks a little wordy right now, the Warlord is very straightforward when it comes to like teaching it. And the Badgers will be a little bit more complicated. Not that much more, but like they'll be a little more complicated. They'll be closer to the Lizards in their complexity.
Yeah. So the Vagabond interaction. I'm just gonna answer this question.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So the Vagabond interaction. I think we had written it that the Vagabond could aid items away from the Warlord. I think it is currently out of the game.
Correct.
I can't remember.
I think it's currently out, but it's an open question.
It's funny how many questions I can't answer about something I literally played yesterday, but it's just the nature of it. We bounce back and forth. So that's happening. The setup is just going to be 3 warriors, a stronghold, and the Warlord in their homeland. Is that the correct term, Cole?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. And that's it. That's how they start.
They'll start on a corner, right? In the classic setup rules.
Yep.
We have some time, Patrick. If you'd like, I could talk through some setup stuff if people are interested in it. and then we can kind of like take any questions about the warlords.
Oh yeah, one more thing. Sorry, I was
Mhm.
one more question. Yep, and then someone asked if they were going to be based off the Vagabond meeples, and no, we've decided to move away from
Yep,
that.
yep. And they also asked how many meeples they have. They have one warlord and 20
Yep, 20
warrior.
meeples right
Yep.
now, and I've never hit it because I've always been so bloodthirsty. But
Yeah.
I think I got to 15 yesterday. Like a turn without bloodshed, so wasted turn for the Warlord player, which is to quote the best guide for Civ ever written, where this guy shows you how to win before 0 BC, and it was like his thesis was a bloodless turn is a wasted turn.
These always be fighting.
Always be fighting. Yep.
Okay, so I want to talk just a little bit about setup, since someone asked about Warlord setup, and I can share a little bit about the revised setup rules. So we've mentioned previously that we're looking at some of the setup because one of the things about Root is many elements of the design are very modular. And have been very easy for us to develop and adapt and expand. The one rule that is not is setup. Because it doesn't allow, because we have this alphabetical setup order, it's fine. It does its job, but it doesn't allow us to like make fine tune corrections or insertions into the order. So I've been wanting to revise setup for a long time, and it's something I've been working on. So we have this kind of new setup system, which what we're going to do is we're keeping the alphabet setup system in place. So the player boards, the setup information on that is all fine. It's the classic setup, still works fine. But then we have for advanced players who play the game more than once, a new kind of advanced setup format. Now, before I explain how it works, I'll say that it does not use reach. Reach can still be used to check the rough viability of any scenario you might design, any player configuration you might design for yourself. But this particular draft just happens to not use reach. Okay, so here's how it works. So you'll have these stacks of setup cards. Some of them are red, and the red are what we think of as high reach factions. We have the Badgers, the Marquis, the Duchy, the Warlord, the Erie. These are all of our red factions. And then you have another block of setup cards, which are all the other factions, the lower reach factions. And the way this works is what you'll do is you'll take a random red card and just set it aside. I guess I'll close that. And you'll just set that random red card aside. And then you'll take all the red cards and all the white cards and you'll shuffle them up. And then you deal out a number equal to the number of players. So let's say you're playing a 4-player game. So you could deal 1, 2, 3, 4. Now this fourth card, if it's not red, so if it's red, we just add it to the flop. If it's not red, we tuck it underneath the first red card. And all that means is that you can't draft this card until the red card on top of it has been drafted. And then what you do is starting with a random player, and this is a little more complicated because we have like a hand draft involved that you can play with. But basically, starting with the first player, they'll select any faction from this menu. They can pick the Warlord, the Riverfolk, the Vagabond, the Erie. And the moment they select that faction, they execute all of the setup steps on that card. So I haven't run a new export from these, so they're a little old right now. So don't, if you see text that doesn't make sense or has lots of typos on it, don't worry about it. We're gonna have PnP kits so soon. You don't need to, do exhausting screen caps and try to build it. I promise you will have PnP kits soon. When you're drafting the first player, they might draft the Vagabond. Second player could choose Warlord, Riverfolk Company, Erie. If that player picks the Warlord, the third player now has the option to pick the second Vagabond, which would have been previously locked. Now, there are a couple of things that are important here. So one thing is, let me set this up. So we use a hand draft. So the way the hand draft works is the first player in choosing order gets 3 cards, the second player gets 4, the third player gets 5, etc. And then after you do setup, you will draft down to a hand of 3. So you still have the same number of cards starting, but the players who are later in the picking order will have more cards to choose from. The other thing that's very important is that we've revised the setups in the game. And we used this concept called homelands. And the way homelands work is during setup, a setup may ask you to identify certain homelands. And when you identify homelands, only your homeland can be yours. That's a bad way of putting this. Basically, two players can't have the same homeland. So if the Warlord picks this for their homeland and it's, the Otter's turn to set up, the Otters could not pick this clearing as their homeland. They could pick this clearing. Now, pieces can overlap. So an example of that is the lizards. Here, I'll just show you. The lizards have a homeland here. Whoops, let me make sure the cameras aren't above it. So the lizards choose any clearing to be their homeland. If able, you must choose one that is not adjacent to another homeland. So there has to be like a 1-point rule if you can, a little bit of distance. Then you put 4 warriors and 1 matching clearing in your homeland, and then you place 3 warriors among clearings adjacent to your homeland as evenly as possible. Now, that step 3, those adjacent warriors that get placed, they can be in someone else's homeland in certain situations. They're not necessarily there. What I mean is the homelands don't have keep style, no pieces can be placed here rules. And then you'll note that the lizards in this setup start with 2 acolytes, which is a little different from the classic setup. Hopefully that gives you a good idea of how the draft works and how the setup works. What's nice about this is there's no verification step. You don't have to go through and make sure this is a step that will work. It also allows us to include games that were too low reach, but also were still viable because reach wasn't a perfect tool. This is a lot closer to a perfect tool for determining setup. And also it's allowing us to do some fun stuff with board states. So the one thing I wanted to show you all was how the cat sets up. So the cat picks 3 clearings, each adjacent to at least one other, as their homeland. So they get a little string of 3 clearings. And those clearings could be anywhere. If they wanted to have their homeland be in the center of the board, they now can. Each of their homeland clearings is going to have 2 warriors. And then you're going to put your keep token in any of those 3, and then you're going to put your sawmill, your workshop, and recruiter among your homeland clearings, 1 building in each. So this allows you to have situations as the cat where you might start in this corner, or you might start you might have a keep at the 5-point fox clearing. So there are lots of different setup configurations that make the game feel very, very, very different. And in certain situations, the cats might be a turn 1 draft pick. And in other instances, they're no, they're maybe they're a B tier draft pick here. And a lot of that is coming from the way the map went, the flop of the factions that were out there, and then what players have in their hands. One of the goals of this system is that we wanted to make it so that the draft mode, which is used in competitive play and in other places too, produces games as variable as casual root play. One of my favorite things about root is picking some factions that are really low on the reach side and have a lot of funny, interesting edges to that competition. And I would love to see that be, I want to give people access to all their root content in a way that as the game grows, they can plug it right into the system and it won't mess with anything. And it also generates the widest number of possible scenarios. Okay, cool. So anyway, that's how the draft works. I see that the chat is going here, so I need to make sure that
it's bananas. I can't even keep up with the questions, and I'm just staring at it. Bear in mind, everybody, I've had a sinus headache for about 36 hours, so here I am.
Yeah, so we are doing things like starting with acolytes. A lot of this stuff is still and Garrick. Sorry, I'm answering 3 questions at once. So you're right, Garrick. Garrick has seen some of these. The otters don't have a homeland. That was a bad example because they just get stuff along the river. And then what was the other thing? Yes, you could totally pick the 5 clearing. There are also a couple other funny things. Someone asked about scalability. So the duchy, for instance, several of the factions had rules put 1 or 2 warriors in every adjacent clearing. Because we've gotten rid of corners, that kind of like can mess with that, right? Because if you started in a clearing with 5 adjacent clearings, you could have tons of pieces on the board. So we sort of changed that language to be like place 5 warriors among clearings adjacent to your homeland as evenly as possible. So we're like capping and kind of formalizing some of those limits a little bit. And again, nothing here like gets rid of the old setups. The old setup system is fine. It's especially fine for players just starting to learn the game. I mean, one of the things that the corner system did is it kept new players from making catastrophic mistakes in the first turn because you were just far away from each other. So the game, like, the Eerie is very scary to a first-time cat player, but they're like 3 turns away from you or 2 turns away, maybe if they're going very fast. This new system allows you to be a lot closer. And I think it can produce some really interesting game states that the game hasn't done before. So these are, in a place, I think, somewhat similar to the Warlord, where they've kind of exited the design stage and we're now like fully in the development stage. And what we'll probably do is we'll either couple the setup cards with the Warlord release when we get that out to you in a few days or early next week. Or we'll do this release kind of like right after the release. I saw somebody ask about the 2-player game. We'll be talking about the 2-player game in more detail in a later chat. The only thing I'll say about the 2-player game is that the only difference in how the draft works is you just only use the red cards. And then the real thing that we're adding to the 2-player game are the minor factions, which we'll have a whole separate chat about those. Okay, let me see.
Yeah, we're gonna save the minor factions and the badgers for another stream.
Yeah. We just there's so much stuff, and I think we wanted the badgers are getting very close to being ready to share. The minor factions are getting close-ish to being ready to share. We want to not flood you guys with a ton of new stuff, and I think so we'll kind of do like 2 or 3 releases over the course of the month, and take people through everything. Any chance we'll see a new map in the expansion, Patrick? Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so it'll be in the junior set, right? Or the second set?
Yeah.
Yep,
If you want to walk through like a little bit, give a little preview of how the product is shaping up, that's fine.
I'll even just load it. So what's gonna happen is 2 things. Yeah, so and Cole keeps ignoring this in meetings, and I get really mad at him, and I cry a lot. But no, it's I also want to emphasize that there is, like, with these change to setup, there will be I think 5 or 6 player will be more accessible, and I know like nobody like that's not like the feature that people are like burning down our door to get. Like, I get that. I like 5 player. I've gone on record to say that. And so one of the goals then is I think with the new setup and possibly with the minor factions, 5 player will become a little bit more viable. And so one of the things I've been working on, I think we've talked about it publicly before, is let me load up the object. It's gonna like crash into when I saved it, they were like in the center of the table, so it's gonna be weird. They'll fly around the table for a bit. So this is not by any means final art. This is something Michael Patak, who's one of my consulting graphic designers, put together. And what the goal is here is that we're going to make a map that is presented vertically. And I don't actually. Let me see if I have the vertical presentation of it. I mean, you will not be able to do this at home. It's just a thing that you can do because it's TTS. I did not save it in the vertical presentation, but basically these platters represent a stack of levels of a tunnel, or maybe you'll present it as a large tree, and so this is just a new map, and you can, if you zoom in on some of them, you'll see stairs go down to connect A, and B will connect to B between the levels, and C will connect to C, and so on, and this board right now has a problem that there is very between these 2 there's kind of a choke point that can occur, which might be fine. We might play with that during testing and enjoy that a lot. So far it hasn't really been a problem, but there's been a few factions that kind of struggle with it. And so that's what we want to present as a new board in the bonus material for the Kickstarter. And then what's going to happen then with this board is if you go to the other side of the board, if you flip any of these over, it's going to take out all the staircases or most of the staircases, and then we'll provide tokens, kind of like the Small World maps that have connective tissue to other maps, where you will then put tokens down in clearings on the main map and create a 15 clearing board for your so any of the old boards can be turned into a 15 clearing board with this underground location.
And this could tie into the setup rules where, like, you know, if you're drafting like a 6-player game or a 5-player game and you have like 4 red factions or 3 red factions, it'll be like, hey, put in one of the extra platters.
Yes.
And that allows us to scale up slots potentially.
Yes. Yep. And to answer the questions, the river we have not finalized. I don't think the river will connect if you're using it as a 15 clearing map, but I'll talk to Cole about that.
Yeah, we
maybe. Well, there is river on all these pieces, so it could connect. Yes, I do agree. There's going to have to be a lot of graphic design work before I sign off on this to make sure that you can flow that the flow of the map is pretty easy. It could also just be presented as one piece on a board, and then maybe we can do it that way too. So, but I think for right now, the platters creates a small footprint when we ship it, so I think we're going to have to go that way.
We have, you know, right now our general, and we're not like, this is all very provisional because we're getting quotes for things and trying to figure it out. Our hope is the expansion is going to include, so it's going to have the 2 major factions. It'll have some of the minor factions and the setup cards and stuff in that. And then for Kickstarter backers, we will have the modular map and some additional minor factions to round it out as like the free gift. We'll also certainly be doing a Clockwork 2, which contains the bots for the river folk and the duchy and things like that as an add-on in a way similar to how Underworld works. A lot of the stuff in terms of the pricing and exact contents, we're still working on that in our back end. Hopefully we'll be able to show you guys more in a few weeks.
Yeah. So that's what I've been working on there. All right.
I'm trying to think
anything else, Cole?
Is there anything else? Oh my goodness. Mole Vagabond incoming. There'll be no new Vagabonds for now. One thing that we are thinking about is maybe making some small balance adjustments to the Vagabond. If we do such a thing, don't worry, we'll get you guys boards. That would be part of that. I have been watching save streams of a lot of the Winter Tournament. The Roots Winter Tournament, which just wrapped up, and Patrick and I had the good pleasure of providing some color commentary during the final game. And I've just been watching a lot of those games and thinking about like the current state of the Root meta and if there are things that we can do to improve it. I think, Root is a really special thing that I think everyone here feels really privileged to work on, because so few board games get to enjoy the kind of life and the truly living character that Root has, which means that it is well worth our time. It's almost our responsibility to just like make sure that it continues to be well supported, and so we are paying attention to things like that, and we will be showing things along those lines in the coming weeks as well. I think that's it for me. Let's see, Corvid plush win. It's going to be a while before we do any more. We have a couple plushes planned for the Kickstarter, but Corvids, they're several ahead of the Corvid. And let's see, for the restricted for questions about the specifics about how the Kickstarter is going to be run and the kind of shipping that we do, I don't have answers for that. I think if you want educated guesses, take a look at the Oath Kickstarter or the Root Underworld Kickstarter and expect something along those lines. Our general rule is like, we don't do promos. We don't really do anything that is an exclusive item. The kinds of deals for shipping, the kind of deals we offer our backers, we're not changing the script or anything here. So you can, if you want a general guidelines, you can just take a look at our last few Kickstarters and you'll get a sense of kind of what we're all about. Someone
We're
asked,
definitely not the right two people to ask about that anyway.
yeah. Oh, it is so nice that I remember when I first started here, when we had to have conversations about print run size. We'd have company wide meetings. Everybody would come to the meeting, and we'd all guess and hem and haw and try to figure out what our print run size is. And I haven't been asked about print run in months, and it's great.
I didn't even go to our last print run size meeting.
Yeah,
So.
I don't know. I mean, I could guess wrong if you'd like. People again asking about the print and play. Soon. We have rules for all these things. We're kind of like just taking them through a little bit of internal testing, and then we'll be prepping some kits. I think sometime next week is probably the best bet for the initial print and play kits, and we'll make sure to have a physical print and play kit and like a TTS object and some instructions of how to like just drop it into your TTS game. Then let's see here. This is a good question. How long from Kickstarter to release? We don't know yet. We would love to have this to you all by the end of the year next year, potentially, but we don't know. It is way too early. There are tons of unknowns in that process, but so sometime within a calendar year would be awesome. Like our previous projects, they'll of course be on TTS before that because it's just so easy, and we want to support you guys. Are there any new cosmetic upgrades? Probably not. Why Kickstarter and retail? I'm not going to answer that. I mean, I think we have a lot. Some of these questions that refer to like general strategy and stuff. Patrick and I have done AMAs on Reddit, and some Google searches can take you there, and you can find some of these questions. And they're
Or just ask me during my next AMA on Twitter.
That's true. Patrick is very good about doing Twitter AIs. Okay, do we have a date for the next stream? That is a good thing to end on. We do not. Watch your Twitter feeds, watch your social feeds. We'll usually announce them a few days beforehand. There's a reasonable chance we'll do a stream next week or the week after is more likely. The only reason why the week after is more likely is because next week we're probably going to do an Oath unboxing stream. And we don't want to flood you guys with content. No one's got time for that. Is this the final expansion? Probably not.
Nice. Yeah, I just said second to last.
Oh, yeah, second to last. I think, yeah, good. Sorry, I just saw that. It's going so fast. All right. Well, I think that's it for me. Do you have anything else, Patrick?
Nothing on Voidlit yet. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, take care, everyone. Have a wonderful Thursday and a good weekend.
Yes, Cole will be the factions of the next expansion. Take care, everybody.